The rain hadn't stopped in 3 days. It clung to the windows of the small house on Mercer Island like a thin, trembling film, distorting the world outside into ripples of gray and silver. Inside, Daniel Brooks sat at the edge of the couch, watching the glow of his wife's phone across the living room. It was late, almost midnight, and Emily was typing something fast, smiling faintly at the screen. That smile didn't belong to him anymore. He hadn't seen it in weeks. "Who are you texting?" he asked softly. His tone wasn't accusatory. "Not yet." Emily glanced up, her expression a practiced mask of mild surprise. "Just Julie. She's going through another breakup, and I'm being the emotional support system again." Daniel nodded. "At midnight?" Her lips twitched. "Julie's a mess, you know that." The phone vibrated again. She flipped its screen down on the table, too quickly, and got up to pour herself more wine. Daniel watched her reflection in the kitchen window, blurred by the streaks of rain. There was something about her movements, nervous, overly casual, that made his stomach twist. He used to know every line of her body. Now, it felt like she was a stranger rehearsing a role in front of him. "Work's been busy?" he asked after a pause. "Yeah. The new project's insane." She filled her glass, her voice just a little too controlled. "You know how clients get when deadlines are close." He did. He also knew she hadn't been staying late at the office before, not until last month. Emily came back to the couch, sat down beside him, and reached for the remote. "Can we not talk about work or Julie or anything depressing? Let's just watch something dumb and fall asleep." He didn't argue. He nodded, pretending to relax, pretending not to notice how her hand stayed near her phone, fingers twitching every time it buzzed. On the TV, some sitcom's laugh track filled the silence. But Daniel wasn't watching. His eyes were fixed on the reflection in the dark window, two blurred figures sitting side by side, miles apart. The next morning, Seattle was gray in every direction, a city made of fog and rain. Daniel left for work early, as usual, but even as he drove across the I-90 bridge, he couldn't shake the image of Emily's smile from last night. That private, hidden smile meant for someone else. He worked as a civil engineer, someone who built bridges, literal ones, but lately, he couldn't even maintain the invisible one between himself and his wife. At the office, his coworker Mark noticed his silence. "Everything okay, man? You look like you spent the night arguing with your tax return." Daniel smirked weakly. "Yeah, something like that." He didn't talk about personal stuff at work. He wasn't the type. But all day, his mind kept looping back to Emily's phone, the quick way she flipped it over, the subtle tension in her shoulders, that nervous laugh. When he came home that evening, the house was empty. Emily's car was gone. A note sat on the kitchen counter, scrawled in her tidy handwriting. "Dinner with the team, don't wait up. Love you." He stared at the words "love you" for a long time. The handwriting was perfectly normal, but the message felt hollow, like something copied and pasted from memory. He made himself a sandwich, sat at the table, and let the house breathe around him. It was quiet in a way that felt wrong. At 9:40 p.m., she still wasn't home. He tried calling her once, no answer. Then again. Straight to voicemail. When she finally walked in near midnight, her cheeks were flushed, her hair slightly damp from the rain. She smelled faintly of perfume, not her usual one. "Sorry," she said, hanging up her coat too quickly. Dinner ran late. Clients wanted to discuss the new campaign. Daniel leaned against the doorway. "You're drenched." "Yeah, we parked far. It's pouring out there." He nodded slowly, eyes tracing her. "You could have called." She smiled, a little defensive. "I texted you." "You didn't." A flicker of guilt crossed her eyes, fast, but he saw it. "Must not have gone through. You know how bad the signal is downtown." He didn't answer. Instead, he reached for the bottle of wine on the counter, poured himself a glass, and offered her one. She shook her head. "I'm exhausted. I'm just going to shower and crash, okay?" He nodded again, wordless. She walked past him, her heels clicking softly on the hardwood floor, a rhythm that sounded too practiced, too careful. When she disappeared into the bathroom, Daniel set down his glass and went to the living room. Her purse was still on the couch. He hesitated only a second before checking it, something he'd never done in 15 years of marriage. Her phone wasn't there. Neither was her wedding ring. The shower kept running upstairs, a steady hum that almost drowned the pounding in his chest. He sat down, eyes fixed on the ring-shaped indentation still visible on the note where she'd written "Love you." That night, he barely slept. The following days passed in fragments, coffee cups left half full, polite morning kisses that didn't reach the heart, and the subtle choreography of two people pretending everything was fine. Emily became more careful. Her phone was always face down. Her smiles felt rehearsed. And yet, she tried harder than ever to appear normal, asking about his day, making dinner, laughing too easily at nothing. It was the overcompensation that gave her away. By the end of the week, Daniel's doubts had hardened into something else, quiet determination. On Friday, when Emily said she was working late again, Daniel decided to follow her. That evening, the rain had returned, steady, cold, relentless. He parked his car 2 blocks from her office building and waited. He felt stupid, childish even. But beneath the shame was something sharper, the need for truth, no matter how much it hurt. At 7:30 p.m., he saw her leave the building. She wasn't alone. A man walked beside her, tall, confident, maybe late 30s. He reached out, brushed a strand of hair from her face. She didn't pull away. Instead, she smiled, that same secret smile from the couch. Daniel's chest tightened. They walked together to a small restaurant, the kind that didn't draw much attention. He watched them through the rain-streaked windshield, watched her touch the man's arm, laugh, tilt her head just the way she used to with him. Something inside him broke quietly, not a loud crack, just a clean, silent snap. When Emily returned home that night, Daniel didn't mention anything. He kissed her forehead, told her she looked tired, and offered to make tea. She seemed relieved, maybe even grateful. She had no idea he'd seen her. But as she sipped her tea, Daniel watched her carefully. His expression was calm, almost too calm. He was already planning what came next. Saturday morning brought a strange calm. Emily was humming while making breakfast, her voice light, careless, the way it used to be before everything changed. Daniel sat at the table with his coffee, pretending to read the paper. Every word blurred into meaninglessness. She placed a plate of scrambled eggs and toast in front of him, then kissed his cheek. "You've been quiet lately. Everything okay?" He looked up, meeting her gaze. Her eyes were bright, but he could see it now, the flicker behind them. The guilt that had nowhere else to hide. "Just tired," he said. "Work stress?" "Something like that." Emily smiled faintly, brushing her hair back. "We should plan something soon. Maybe a weekend away, somewhere sunny for a change." Daniel nodded. "Yeah. Sounds good." She smiled again and turned away, her back to him as she rinsed the dishes. The moment she did, his expression changed, the mask slipping just for a second. He wasn't tired. He was done pretending. That afternoon, while Emily went shopping, Daniel opened her laptop. She never used passwords with him, she used to trust him completely, but now, the login screen glared at him like a wall. He stared at it for a long time, hands still. Then he noticed something strange, a small USB drive tucked in the drawer beside the desk. He almost ignored it, then changed his mind. When he plugged it in, there were only a few files. Work presentations, photos, documents, and one hidden folder named archive_2. Inside, a single file, img_2371.jpg. He opened it. It was a selfie, Emily in a hotel room, smiling, wearing a dress he'd never seen. And beside her, slightly blurred but unmistakable, the same man from last night. His hand was on her shoulder. Daniel's stomach clenched. His breath came shallow and slow, as if his body were trying to protect him from itself. He closed the laptop and sat still for several minutes, staring at the wall. It was real now. No more doubt. No room left for denial. That night, Emily came home radiant, shopping bags in hand, pretending to be the same woman she'd always been. Daniel met her with quiet warmth, kissed her cheek, and helped her unpack. She didn't notice how carefully he watched her, like a man observing a stranger moving through his own house. He asked her about her day. She told small lies wrapped in easy smiles. He didn't challenge any of them. Later, when she went to bed, Daniel stayed up and scrolled through her social media. Her friend, Julie, the one she claimed to be texting that night, hadn't posted anything in 2 months. He knew then that the name was just a cover. The rain outside hit the windows harder, faster. Seattle's sky had turned black. Over the next few days, Daniel began collecting details like evidence in an investigation. Receipts left in her coat pocket. Calendar alerts that didn't match her work hours. A call from an unknown number that ended the moment he answered. Every piece added to a puzzle he wished didn't exist. He learned the man's name from one of her saved contacts, N. Studio. A photographer. Nathan Hale. He had a small studio downtown, the kind of place that catered to corporate clients during the day and did private sessions after hours. Daniel searched his name online, found his business page, and saw her, Emily, in one of the photos. Not a portrait. A candid, her head turned slightly, laughing, bathed in soft light. The caption read, "Muse." Daniel stared at it for a long time, his jaw tightening. The confrontation didn't come immediately. Instead, it unfolded slowly, through small, almost invisible cracks in conversation. "Who's Nathan?" he asked casually one evening as she folded laundry. She froze for half a second. Too small for most to notice, but not him. "Oh, he's a photographer we hired for the campaign," she said, voice steady. "Why?" "Nothing. Just curious." He smiled and reached for her hand, and she smiled back, but her pulse was racing beneath his fingers. He could feel it. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She tossed beside him, restless, staring at the ceiling. Daniel pretended to be asleep but was watching her through the half-dark. When she finally got up, tiptoeing to the living room with her phone, Daniel followed, quietly, barefoot, heart pounding. From the hallway, he heard her whisper. "No, it's fine. He doesn't suspect anything. I'll see you Tuesday. Same place." A pause. "I miss you too." Then silence. The sound of rain swallowing everything else. The next morning, Daniel went to work as usual, calm, polite, measured. At lunch, he took a detour. Downtown, near Pioneer Square, stood Hale Studio, glass front, black sign, minimalist logo. He parked across the street and watched through the window as Nathan Hale worked, tall, confident, camera in hand. A man who took what he wanted. At one point, Nathan laughed with a client, his hand brushing her shoulder. That easy intimacy made Daniel's jaw clench. He wasn't impulsive by nature. But something inside him was shifting, slowly, dangerously. He walked across the street, entered the studio. The bell above the door chimed softly. "Hey," Nathan said, glancing up. "You have an appointment?" Daniel smiled faintly. "No. I'm just here to ask about a session." Nathan grinned. "Sure. Any particular kind of shoot?" Daniel's eyes drifted to the framed photos on the wall, including one of Emily, laughing in sunlight. He pointed at it. Something like that. Nathan followed his gaze, smirked. She was great to work with. Natural. Really comfortable in front of the camera. Daniel's hand tightened around his phone in his pocket. Yeah, he said quietly. She can be. They stared at each other for a moment, a strange, silent recognition between men who knew the same woman in two different lives. Then Daniel smiled, thanked him, and left. The door closed behind him with a soft chime, like the sound of a trigger being pulled. Tuesday came. The day Emily thought she could keep everything hidden just a little longer. She left the house early, dressed beautifully but pretending it was a client meeting. Daniel kissed her goodbye as usual, his hand lingering on her arm for a second longer than normal. Be safe, he said quietly. I will, she replied, smiling, and walked out the door. He watched her drive away until her car disappeared around the corner. Then he went upstairs, opened the drawer, and took out the USB drive, the one with the photo. He slipped it into his pocket, got in his car, and followed her. Seattle's rain had thinned into mist by mid-morning, the city half hidden behind drifting gray clouds. Emily parked near a boutique hotel, not her office, not anywhere close. Daniel parked a block away. He watched her step inside. Minutes later, Nathan arrived. He carried nothing, no camera, no work bag, just his hands in his coat pockets and that easy smile Daniel remembered from the studio. They disappeared into the elevator together. Daniel sat there for a long moment, staring at the glass doors reflecting his own face, pale, hollow, older somehow. Then he got out. He took the stairs. Each step felt heavier than the last. When he reached the fourth floor, the hallway was silent except for the faint hum of rain on the windows. He found room 412. The door was slightly ajar. He didn't knock. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of perfume and coffee. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, Nathan beside her, laughing softly at something she'd said. She turned, and froze. Daniel. The word shattered between them like glass. Nathan stood up fast, face drained of color. Hey, man, Daniel didn't move. He wasn't shouting, wasn't angry in the way Emily expected. His voice, when it came, was calm and terrifyingly quiet. How long? Emily's lips trembled. Please, just. How long? She swallowed hard. A few months. The answer came out small, almost childlike. Nathan took a cautious step forward. Look, this isn't. Daniel turned to him. You should leave. Nathan hesitated. I'm not. Now. The word was low, final. Something in Daniel's eyes made Nathan obey. He grabbed his coat and left without another word, closing the door behind him. Silence. Only the sound of rain. Emily stood there, shaking. Daniel, I didn't mean for it to happen. You were always working, and I felt. He raised a hand, stopping her. Don't make this about me. Tears welled in her eyes. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Daniel stepped closer, his expression unreadable. You lied to me. Every night, you came home and pretended. You looked me in the eye, and you lied. She pressed her hand to her mouth. I know. I know, and I hate myself for it. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the USB drive, and placed it on the table. I found the photo. You kept it like a souvenir. She looked at it, horror flashing in her eyes. You went through my things. He almost laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. I built a life for you, Emily. A house, a future. You went through me. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Just the sound of their breathing, ragged and broken. Then he said, softly. Was it love? Her silence was the answer. He nodded slowly. Something in him, the last fragile piece of hope, finally gave way. That night, Daniel didn't go home. He checked into a hotel across town, sat by the window, and watched the city blur beneath the rain. He felt strangely empty, not angry anymore, just hollow, as if everything that made him who he was had drained out with the storm. Emily tried to call. Dozens of times. He didn't answer. He thought about the 15 years they'd shared, birthdays, quiet Sunday mornings, the way she used to fall asleep on his chest while the rain whispered outside. All of it now felt like a story he'd once read, one that ended in a language he no longer understood. 2 weeks later, Daniel filed for divorce. Emily moved out. The house stayed the same, photos still on the walls, their wedding picture still smiling back from the hallway, but everything inside it was dead. Friends tried to take sides, but in truth, there were no sides left. Just wreckage. Nathan disappeared from Emily's life soon after. She told herself he was different, that their connection was real, but once her marriage was gone, he lost interest. She ended up alone in a small apartment overlooking Lake Union, the city lights shimmering on the water like a reflection of all she'd destroyed. Sometimes she'd walk past Mercer Island and see the bridge Daniel helped design, strong, steady, reaching across the water, and she'd think about how he once built something like that for her. And how she'd been the one to break it. Months later, Daniel stood on that same bridge, watching the water churn beneath him. It was late evening, the city behind him glowing in gold and gray. He wasn't thinking about revenge anymore, or betrayal, or what she'd done. Only about what it meant to rebuild, not structures, but himself. He closed his eyes, listening to the endless rhythm of rain against steel. For the first time in months, he felt something like peace. Because rain, like pain, eventually passes. And when it does, it leaves the air cleaner, even if the ground beneath still remembers every drop.